Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. My name is Adam, and I am joined here with Colin, and your Overwatch League news starts now.
One shot, one kill. The cavalry's here! Nerf this!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Like I just said, I am Adam, and I am joined here by the always talented, the always lovely Colin. How's it going today, Colin?
Hi, I'm Colin.
And I'm Adam. Is that how we're supposed to do that?
I feel like things are a little different right now. I have to follow the flow.
Yeah, no, it's as if you couldn't tell by our introduction, we are not joined today by Glenn. So it is just Colin and Adam running the show now, and the trains are already gonna run off the track. So we're off to a good start already.
Yeah, we got a bit of a Zuckerberg Facebook situation here. He was voted out by stock options.
It was tragic, but we had to do what we had to do. So, Colin, we have week 1 of stage 1 coming up, and after the holiday season and the new year, the Overwatch League is so close, I can almost taste it. How excited are you for this week 1?
I am pretty pumped. We have a solid week 1, followed up by 4 more solid weeks of just the first stage. So everything is going to be pretty stacked from here until like June. We got a long road ahead of us, but I am excited for every step along the way.
Yeah, so let's talk about the stage 1, week 1. We have a lot of really incredible matchups. Why don't we break down? Let's go day by day, and let's break down Wednesday. So just under a week away on January 10th, we have a slate of 3 matches. Why don't we talk about those real fast, Colin?
Sure thing. We have 3 game slots starting at 7, 9, and 11, and starting off the official first stage of the Overwatch League, it's going to be the San Francisco Shock going up against the Los Angeles Valiant.
So what do you think about that match, that first match, that Shock Valiant? We saw them in the preseason play each other in that first day of preseason matches, and that was one of the closer matches that we saw all preseason. So
it definitely was. It was the first one that went into that kind of tiebreaker that we saw showing up on Yizhong Tower, and I thought it was. We're a Mayhem team here, but Mayhem notwithstanding, that was kind of the first super interesting, like super close game we had. And we know the Shock kind of stepped it up on that first day to step in against the Mayhem, and we could maybe blame their loss against the Valiant on fatigue. But whatever that reason was, I think that the Shock is going to kind of restructure here and bring the fire to this rematch.
So are you taking the San Francisco Shock beating the Valiant in that first match of this week 1, stage 1?
Well, I mean, the Valiant had a really good preseason in general. On that last day, we saw them come up against the Gladiators and reign victorious, where the Shock kind of came back against the Spitfire and got absolutely shut out. So I'm going to have a little bit of faith in the Shock because they brought it so close in that preseason game, but I'm going to give the edge here to the Valiant, honestly.
Wonderful. Now, I think, like you said, the Shock kind of on day 3 in the preseason did get shut out by the Spitfire. But you know what? I'm looking for Baby Bay and Nomi and IDQD to have a really, really big round. And I think the Shock might actually pull it off.
No, I mean, Baby Bay was definitely our MVP, given that day 1 prediction we did. But the Valiant still has like Envy and Fate, and they have some strong contenders going up on their own. So I don't know. I think the Valiant might bring it out again. But I'm pulling for the Shock.
Yeah. So I mean, we're going to be kicking it off strong, and then that second match we have our other LA team. We have the Shanghai Dragons against the Los Angeles Gladiators. Now, we saw a lot out of both of these teams in the preseason. The Gladiators got that win against the London Spitfire, and although the Dragons, that first match, got shut out by the Seoul Dynasty, I think we really saw a lot from both of these teams. Is this a match that you're looking forward to?
This is most definitely a match I'm looking forward to because we saw the Dragons bring really good fight against Seoul Dynasty in that first matchup, and we know kind of what the Gladiators can do because even though they lost against the Valiant in their second match, they went up against the London Spitfire, a team that we had a lot of weight behind. Like, we had a lot of big predictions coming up for the Spitfire, and they came out victorious. So, I don't know. I want to believe in the Shanghai Dragons, but just looking at what we got here, I think the Gladiators might edge them out just a little bit, but it's going to be pretty close if I had to call it.
Yeah, and I think that this is going to be a really exciting match to watch because I think we're going to have a really kind of like tactical chess match between Sure4 for the Los Angeles Gladiators and Daya, a player that was on none of our radars that popped up in that preseason and kind of blew us all away.
Yeah, Daya was incredible. He got a lot of the exciting plays. That's why I really want the Dragons to pull it out. But, I mean, Sure4, we all know Sure4. Sure4 has got a lot going for him. But when it comes to style and when it comes to precision, Daya's just bringing the noise. So I'm still going to have to give it to the Gladiators, but like I said, this is going to be super close.
So, as a Houston native, Colin, let's talk about this third match. I know a team that you are not particularly 100% fond of, the Dallas Fuel, Houston's rival against the Seoul Dynasty. This, I mean, to end day one, what a heavyweight fight between these two teams.
No, this is honestly probably the most explosive way I can think to end off the first day of the Overwatch League. The Fuel has a lot of all-stars, a lot of heavy hitters. I mean, we could just sit here and talk about Siegel for a good amount of time alone, but he's not the only one on the team. You got so many just going for him. And, of course, you got the Dynasty. But, oh, man, the Dynasty, so far, undefeated, absolutely just bringing the noise, whereas the Fuel, also undefeated. you got a bunch of, like I said, two heavy hitters going up against each other. And I think Bunny and Siegel are going to play off each other a lot. I think XQC and Jaehung. Yeah, Jaehung. There's so many names here across both teams that just excite me, like from a fan's point of view.
So I think it's going to come down to the support for the Seoul Dynasty. If they can keep their support in the fight, if Dallas isn't able to really target Jaehung and Toby, I think that they're going to have a tough road ahead beating the Seoul Dynasty. So I like the Seoul Dynasty to take this one.
Yeah, I'd really pay attention to Toby. Jaehung gets a lot of the spotlight, but while he's kind of out in the open and everyone is sort of focusing on him, we saw it earlier, Toby's going to be behind enemy lines kind of and just pulling that support up.
So let's go to Thursday, the 11th. We have the London Spitfire against our Florida Mayhem at 5 o'clock. Of course, these times are all Eastern Standard Time because that's the time zone that we are located in. We have the Philadelphia Fusion. We're going to see them for the first time in action against the Houston Outlaws.
I sure do feel sorry for Philadelphia.
And we have, again, that old sports rivalry between Boston and New York leading up day one.
A rematch for the centuries already.
So let's talk about this first match. The London Spitfire, whom we saw a lot of impressive things out of in the preseason, and the Florida Mayhem, who kind of started off on a little rocky footing. They're kind of shaky during the preseason. A lot of confidence was lost. But how do you see this matchup playing out? Do you think the Mayhem are going to be able to rebound and kind of take advantage of everyone's low expectations going into stage one?
My heart says I want them to.
My body is telling me yes.
Haha, Glenn's not here to stop us from doing this stuff. No, my heart really wants them to. My brain, though, I mean, we saw the Spitfire completely shut out the San Francisco Shock. And while we did see them lose to the Gladiators, it was a really, really close match. Meanwhile, if we look at the Mayhems, both games, they won one in each. But that was about as far as they got.
So do you think the London Spitfire are going to kind of... Do you think it's going to be a, hey, welcome to the league moment for the Florida Mayhem, where they're going to kind of get knocked back in the first game and have to regroup?
I feel like we're going to kind of see what we're predicting from the Mayhem, where maybe they bring it back in that final escort or hybrid map, Nimbani. But, oh yeah, this is a little tidbit for people at home. We have been keeping track, as you might have seen, on the map setups that they were playing in the preseason, and we saw the Blizzard kind of fall into a one or the other structure. However, for the league, it's kind of all mixed together. So we're seeing Dorado, we're seeing Junkerton for the first choice, we're seeing Anubis, we're seeing Oasis and Ilios, we're seeing Numbani and Eichenwald. But it seems that they're all kind of like throwing them together and mishmashing them, so there's no real structure anymore. So you could have Numbani, Temple Anubis, Oasis, and Numbani, or Dorado, Anubis, Oasis, or Numbani, like we are seeing in the Spitfire Mayhem match, or we could have a Dorado, Anubis, Ilios, Eichenwald. There's kind of really no telling, obviously, except if you go on the website.
And I think that's going to make the matchups really exciting. And as Colin mentioned, on the website, we actually have a match details page for each of these matches, which kind of lists out the maps that they're going to be playing and a countdown to these games. So I think that this is, the website is just constantly improving, and I think that these are just the small touches that we're seeing on the website, on the Overwatch Week site going up, that are really exciting.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing them improve as we get up closer to opening day. And eventually those nice little grayed out standing and stats are going to become solid, and we're going to be able to get some real nice juicy data on both all the teams going in and where they're kind of placing and how each team is doing on an individual stat base, which, as a little bit of a nerd, I'm really excited for.
Yeah, so let's go from your gut, Colin. Spitfire, Mayhem, who's coming out on top?
Ah, man. Really making this hard on me. Once again, heart says Mayhem, but if I'm going with my gut here, I think the Spitfire's going to pull it out. Mayhem's going to, as a fan, and I think as any fan who's been a fan of a team that kind of struggles from the beginning, I don't know if you've ever run across this, but there are seasons where you follow a team all the way through. You buy their merch, you sit in the stands, you cheer them on, but you kind of know against hope that they may not do too well.
As an Orlando sports fan, that is a story that I am very familiar with. I think, as much as it's going to sadden me to say this, I think that the London Spitfire will take this one 3-2. I think the Mayhem are going to push into overtime, but I think ultimately the Spitfire, just having that rotation of solid players, is going to come out on top. So this next match, we have the Philadelphia Fusion against Colin's hometown team, the Houston Outlaws. Woo! So let's talk about this for a second. The Philadelphia Fusion, for whatever reason, I don't think there has been an official statement from the team yet. It could have been difficulties getting J1 visas for players. It could have been, lack of players and their ability to get them to the Los Angeles training facilities. But we really haven't seen too much from the Philadelphia Fusion, and their social media presence has started to pick up a little bit. And of course, the green wall, that is the Houston Outlaws. We've seen hashtag #AntiUp. We've seen them all over social media, and their fan base are some of the most vocal fan bases in the Overwatch League. What do you expect from this? I mean, we have this complete unknown in the Philadelphia Fusion coming up against something in a brand that is already established in our minds from the preseason.
So, I know I've been a little pessimistic about the statistics on other teams, and this might just be because I'm heavily biased in my heart. But the Outlaws, even though they lost both of their opening matches, I think we've seen them put enough fight in that any other team they're going to go up against is dangerous. And I think even though we haven't seen the Fusion play, they've been given a little bit extra time to train, and they haven't gone up against any teams yet, but they have been given that advantage, kind of taking a back seat, watching all of them, seeing kind of their early strats that they're pulling out. So a lot of people might call this a coin toss. I'm going to go out and say the Outlaws, though, because both matches we've seen them up against the Fuel and up against that Avalanche that is the Dynasty, we saw them bring it into the end of overtime against the Fuel. They were so close of winning their first game, and up against the Dynasty, they lost 2-1. They drew one game and won one game, making them the first team to win a match against the Dynasty. So, oh man, I'm so excited to see where the Outlaws go. Linkzer, my heart belongs to him, and this is going to be a really exciting match.
I thought that the I Heart Linkser t-shirt that you're wearing was a little much when we came to record, but I'm just glad that you get to wear your second affiliation on your sleeve.
You know what? I'll keep the Mayhem tattooed on my forehead, but I'll have the Outlaws tattooed over my heart under my shirt.
Yeah. So I think that the Fusion have a little bit of an advantage coming into this match, having watched the two Outlaw games. Like you said, a lot of people are going to be calling this game a little bit of a coin toss, and I think that might be accurate in the fact that we haven't seen the Fusion play at all. I mean, I've been trying to watch scrims and streams of them playing, but we haven't seen them in a competitive match yet. So I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of firepower that they come out with. So I do like the Outlaws to take this one, but I think it's going to be another close match.
I do definitely think that the Fusion are going to bring a fight, no doubt about it. But the Outlaws, man, we've seen what they can do. We see how close they can bring it, and I think if I was the Fusion going up against them, be just a little bit scared right now.
So let's talk about this last match that we have on day 2. We have the New York Excelsior against the Boston Uprising, the old storied New York versus Boston lineup.
That rematch. So we saw their initial game with the Excelsior taking it 3-1, and but we also saw the Uprising win their next game on that first Friday in the preseason, and the Excelsior lose their game, granted against the Dynasty, on that Saturday. So going up on a kind of win-loss ratio here, they're about equal. But we can't ignore that first game with that 3-1 victory towards the Excelsior. What do you think? Who do you think is going to kind of come out ahead?
I think my gut is telling me that the Boston Uprising are going to get the revenge that they want. They're going to come out swinging, and I think that they're going to take it 3-1. I like Boston over New York in this match.
Very interesting prediction here. I will say that I think I'm giving New York the slightest edge because, if I am not mistaken, they also got a one-match victory against the Seoul Dynasty, even though the final score was 3-1 favoring the Dynasty. They did win one match. So, given their initial victory against Boston and their not as heavy loss as it could have been against Seoul, I'm going to have to lean towards the Excelsior, man. And we've seen what Pine, Miko, oh man, gonna get into this controversy again.
If you have any hate mail, his name is Colin.
Yeah, thanks. So I don't know. We've seen these guys bring the fire before, and I think Boston might get into their own heads again.
Speaking of fire, as we move into day 3, we have the LA Valiant with the Dallas Fuel leading off the game, leading off that day. So, let's quick pick: LA Valiant, Dallas Fuel. Who do you think's gonna take it?
I'm gonna go with the Fuel. Honestly, we've seen how kind of scary good the Fuel can be, and we've seen the Valiant put up a good fight before. But if I had to go with my gut, I think the Valiant are gonna do it.
I also you're picking the Fuel, right?
Yes, I mixed up my words there. Definitely the Fuel. Definitely think the Fuel are going to take it.
I think that I agree with you. I have the Dallas Fuel as well. Now we have another in our second and final Florida Mayhem match. of Stage 1, Week 1 against the Boston Uprising. I know Boston, great lineup, great matchups against the New York Excelsior, and they also had the Seoul Dynasty, I believe, right? Or was that the Excelsior in the preseason?
The Uprising, or who they've gone up against?
Yeah, the Uprising. They played New York, and they also played the Shanghai Dragons. That's right, and they ended up beating the Dragons. So we have the Uprising in Florida Mayhem. You know what? I think I'm going to take Florida on this one. I like it. Everything that I've seen from Boston, and the Mayhem. I think that they're going to really elevate their game. I think that they're going to see playing in that first match kind of the level that they need to be at, and I think that they're going to take it. I'm expecting a huge game from Tivik.
No, me too. I'm going to have to go with you here. The Uprising is just sketchy enough in my head that, and our little scrappy team, I think, will be able to take it all the way. I'm gonna put the Mayhem on this one. I think Logix and, like you said, Tivik, they're gonna bring the noise. They're gonna have to. They're gonna have to show kind of the league and us here at home in Florida just what they're all about. I think they can definitely do that against the Boston Uprising.
Yeah, I think that the DPS in this match, like you said, between Logix and Tivik, I think that's really going to be the difference here. And to close out day 3, we have the Shock and the Dragons. What do we think about here, Colin? Do we think that the Shock are going to shock us all and beat the Dragons, or do you think that the team from Shanghai is going to take it home?
In my opinion, no. I think the Dragons are gonna bring this one out. Like I said, seen a lot of good plays out of the Dragons, and the Shock, while they have done very, very well. Once again, Baby Bay, great team overall. I just think that they've yet to, pardon the pun here, shock me too much overall. But I think the Dragons, man, they're gonna be afforded a victory at some point. I think it's gonna be here.
Yeah, again, I think that we're gonna see some interesting matchups between Baby Bay and Daya. I know that we mentioned Daya's name a lot when we're talking about the Shanghai Dragons. But I think it's really going to come down to, I think we're going to see some really cool Tracer fights. I'm expecting a couple really awesome Widowmaker fights. But I honestly think that the Shanghai Dragons are going to edge this one out. As we head into day 4, we have 3 more matchups. We have the Spitfire against the Philadelphia Fusion. The Excelsior versus the Houston Outlaws. Woo! And the Seoul Dynasty against the Los Angeles Gladiators. Yay. So let's talk about this first matchup. The Spitfire and Fusion, two teams a team that we have not seen a lot of, and then the London Spitfire, who we've seen a lot of impressive things out of. So what do you think, Colin? Do you think the Spitfire are going to take this one, or do you think the Fusion have enough to surprise us all on week 1?
Once again, when we're talking about the Fusion here, we just have not seen them. And at the point that this game comes out, we will have seen their first outing, and so maybe my prediction's going to change, kind of seeing what they bring to the table here. But as it stands right now, with the information I have, I think the Spitfire are going to overtake them.
I think that I'm in the same boat. I think that, again, our perception of them may change throughout the week, depending on how they come out and how they play against the Houston Outlaws on that second day of week 1. But I think as of now, I just don't know enough about them. I don't know enough about their strengths, their weaknesses, to really confidently pick them above the London Spitfire. Now we have the New York Excelsior against Houston Outlaws. I like the Outlaws in this one. I think they just have the firepower. I think that we've seen enough of them that I really think that they're going to come out, and I have the Outlaws going 2-0 this week of Stage 1. I think that they're going to handily beat the Philadelphia Fusion, and I think that the Excelsior are also going to fall to them. What do you think?
Now, I did have the Excelsior winning up against the Uprising, and we saw them struggle against Seoul, but I mean, who doesn't? However, both of us going up against each other, we both got a 1 match point against Seoul in that earlier match. Man, this is going to be good. It's going to be really close. I'm also going to have to give it to Houston, though. No sort of bias there. I just think that what we've seen, even though they haven't kind of pulled one out yet, I think the Outlaws, man, they're looking really good this year. I think they're going to kind of pull it out ahead.
Yeah, and then finally, again, we talked about that kind of immovable force that is kind of lingering on the back of all of our minds. The Seoul Dynasty playing against the Los Angeles Gladiators, kind of capping off Week 1, Stage 1. Colin, I predict the Seoul Dynasty are going to, I think they're going to take it 4-0 against the Gladiators. I'm really confident in their ability to just go out and absolutely steamroll them to end Stage 1. Stage 1, Week 1. What do you think? I mean, the Gladiators, I think, a great team. We've seen a lot of great things from them, taking the match over the Spitfire and taking one game out of the 4-game set from the Valiant. But I just think that the Seoul Dynasty, having not played since the end of day 1, I think that they have the most rest in between their matches, and I think that they're going to use those 2 days off to prepare for the Gladiators, and I think that preparation is really going to show.
Yeah, you're putting a lot of harsh words on them, quote unquote steamrolling the poor Gladiators, but like you said, Gladiators have put up a fight before and they won against the Spitfire. Spitfire, a team that would later go to completely shut out the Shock. But if we're talking about shutouts, Seoul Dynasty has really shut out the Dragons earlier. They won against my boys, the Outlaws, which I think both of us have currently winning the 2 games that they're up against this first match, and the Excelsior, who we have winning against the Uprising. I think, oh man, there's a lot of great teams this year. I would just be really frightened if I was any team going up against Seoul. And it's kind of, I guess, also a headspace thing, man. When you think about the Seoul Dynasty, I think there's not one group of like maybe there's a few out there, but there's very few people here in the league, fan wise, player base, that I mean would put anyone coming out against the Dynasty. And when you get that kind of talk going around everywhere in the league, on Twitter or whatever, you're gonna have a lot of players up in their own heads. You're gonna have a lot of people kind of walking into that ring thinking, "Oh, okay, we're going up against the Dynasty. I guess we'll just take the L on this one and try again next time."
Yeah.
But and I mean, given all that, given my kind of talk about them getting in their own heads, I do think the Seoul Dynasty are gonna pull ahead of the Gladiators here. It'd be foolish not to. We just getting further in, they're going to have to kind of get over themselves. And, I mean, we have some scary foreshadowing here. We're going to keep the Week 1 here, but I do see a storm on the horizon. That is Week 2, Day 1 of the Sunshine State going up against these unstoppable forces. And so I have them definitely over the Gladiators. And I think the Seoul Dynasty are going to be a really rough tidal wave to contend with for the rest of this league.
Yeah, I think that, again, like you said about it being headspace and really being, the Seoul Dynasty, even that name just carries a weight to it. We see a lot of these players having won the Overwatch World Cup. Fleta, I mean, Jaehong, Toby, Bunny, like these players have, and not saying that other teams don't have players with names on them, but these are names that they're frightening. I mean, they honestly are, and I don't think that they're unbeatable. I don't think that I think that the great thing about this league is how much parity there is in this league, and the fact that any team can beat any team. I just think that it's going to take a while for teams to really wear down the Seoul Dynasty, kind of figure out and exploit their weaknesses, because from watching their tapes, it's really hard to see weaknesses in their play. So I honestly, it's tough, and I don't know if Stage 1's going to be enough time to do it.
I mean, so we've seen them lose individual rounds, and we've seen them even draw with the Outlaws. So I mean, in the infamous words of Rocky IV, they're not a machine. Like they can be taken down. Like you said, though, it's just going to be that wear and tear. It's going to be a little bit, and I I'm gonna post my optimistic side here, and I don't know when it's gonna happen, and I don't know who's going to do it, but I'm gonna say at some point here in stage 1, Dynasty's gonna take that first L, and we're gonna see some really, really good play here.
And who knows? Oh man, our computers are trying to talk to us. That's wonderful. And you know what? I think that we have, we could all be surprised, and the Dallas Fuel could come out swinging and absolutely bring it to the Seoul Dynasty. So I think that, like I said, that any team can beat any team in this league, and that's what's going to make it so fun. So, kind of to wrap up stage 1, if you had to pick, if you were picking, we have 4 teams go into that stage 1 title matches. We have 4 teams that are going to play in that playoff format. Who are your 4 teams? What 4 teams do you have taking it?
All right, I'm just gonna throw this out here. Seoul, I mean, we're talking a lot about them. I think it's a little bit of a gimme. I'm gonna say my boys, the Outlaws. The Fuel are super, they're just a solid team this year. That's why I'm really excited for them to go up against the Seoul Dynasty here, because I think if there's any team that might be the sledgehammer that it'll take to kind of put a crack in that wall, definitely going to be the Fuel. And one more team here. There's once we kind of get past those 2, the Fuel and the Dragons, and then my personal pick of the Outlaws, I'm gonna give it to the Spitfire, man. I don't know. My dream is that Mayhem comes through, shocks everyone, takes it all the way, wins everything. But Spitfire's got a solid team from what I've seen. So I think, I put 2 from the Pacific and 2 from the Atlantic. I don't know if you're going a similar route, but
I actually think that those are my 4 as well. I think that the Houston Outlaws and London Spitfire are going to take it from the Atlantic. And on the Pacific side, you know what? I'm going to switch it up just a little bit just to be different. I am going to pick the Seoul Dynasty and the San Francisco Shock.
Interesting.
I think that they have a solid lineup, and I think that I like Shanghai, but I don't think we've really seen enough other than the few, there was a lot of flashy plays from them, but I don't know if I've seen enough from them to really be sold on them yet.
Yeah, you're jumping on that Baby Bay train, I see.
I am. And Sleepy. Also, their social media is also pretty amazing, and I've been a fan of all of the interactions that we've had with them on Twitter and their fans. So, I think that kind of wraps up our Stage 1, Week 1 predictions. Again, thank you so much for listening. We are all on all of our social media platforms. You can find us on Twitter at OW League Now, and of course the OW stands for Overwatch. What else would it stand for?
Glenn's not here. The Now stands for Now.
Take that, Glenn. You can also find us on SoundCloud at Overwatch League Now and on iTunes. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave us a rating. Tell us how much you love the show. Tell us how much you hate the show. If you visited our Denny's dumpster, make sure you also leave a Yelp review on our Denny's dumpster. That would be much appreciated.
Really helps drive business.
Yeah, that Denny's is super appreciative of it. But also, thank you so much for listening, and I think that we are truly in for an exciting time here in the Overwatch League, and I think Stage 1, Week 1 is really going to set the tone for the exciting things that we have coming every week until June. So, until next time, I'm Adam.
And I'm Colin.
Stay on the payload.
Please.
One shot, one kill. Cheers, love! The cavalry's here! Nerf this!
never die.